The most painful moments in football aren't just the matches lost. Sometimes the people we lose change the meaning of an entire game. Today, we remember not just a footballer, but a heart, a passion, a story. The man who always smiled on the pitch, who made hearts soar with every goal he scored.
Well, that's back towards Diogo Jota, who's inside the penalty area and scores! Absolutely incredible! Scenes the like of which...
And off the pitch, a genuine person, devoted to his family, friends, and life. This video was created to showcase his career, his unforgettable moments, and the legacy he left behind. Because some people are immortalized not only by the football they played, but also by the lives they touched. On the edge of Porto, in the narrow streets of Gondomar, a story began. Inside a small house, a mother and father returned home with weary hands. His mother, Isabel, would leave the factory still carrying the scent of oil on her fingers, brushing them through her son's hair. His father, Joachim, came back from the crane yard with dust in his pockets, carrying only one piece of advice: keep your feet on the ground. Diogo never forgot that. He never chased after flashy boots or brand names. All he ever needed was a ball. Because for him, football wasn't a luxury, it was breathing. Broken flower pots in the yard, balls ricocheting off the walls. Every sound echoing through that house was the birth of a new dream. And the one who shared that dream the most was his younger brother, Andre. They grew up together, ran through the same streets, walked through the same club gates. The small fields of Gondomar SC became their second home. The neighbors always described him with the same words: a polite boy, quiet, hard-working. But the moment he stepped onto the pitch, something else flickered in his eyes. At school he was calm, yet in football, he was fiercely stubborn. Give him the smallest space, and he had the courage to turn it into an entire world. Even his name began to change. There were too many Diogo Silvas around. He became Diogo J, just a single letter, yet it carried an identity. What started as a simple joke would one day echo in the chants of millions of fans. His family always stood behind him. During his Passos de Ferreira days, long bus rides were nothing unusual. Sometimes his father drove, sometimes his mother, despite her exhaustion, took him to training. Those endless roads taught Diogo one truth: never forget where you came from while choosing where you're going. And Diogo made his choice. He nurtured his dream with persistence, step by step. The story that began in the narrow streets of Gondomar was now preparing to cross the borders of Portugal. The boy who once roamed the streets of Gondomar now stood on the stage of Portuguese football. At just 17, wearing the Passos de Ferreira shirt, he began to make his name known. A young star of a small club, but with every goal and his ice-cold finishing, he had already caught the eye of the big teams. 47 matches, 18 goals, more than just numbers, each strike carried a message: I am here. The summer of 2016 changed everything. An Atletico Madrid contract turned the dream of a young Portuguese into reality. But destiny didn't send him straight to Spain, it brought him back home. A loan move to Porto, a giant club, a ruthless competition. Waiting on the bench was not easy. Yet with patience, he bided his time, and every chance that came, he turned into goals. By season's end, the scoreboard read 9 goals, and an unrelenting football culture. The championship was like hell for a young player. But Jota turned hardship into opportunity. In his very first season, 46 matches, 18 goals, 5 assists. And in the end, he became one of the men who carried Wolves back into the Premier League. At Molineux, the fans now knew his name by heart. And in the Premier League, the story grew even bigger. He reached double figures in his first season. But the real explosion came in Europe. On Europa League nights, his hat tricks crushed Besiktas and Espanyol. That sharp turn in tight spaces, the explosive first step, the cold-blooded finish sending keepers the wrong way. Europe now knew who Diogo Jota was. By the time he left Wolves, the numbers read 131 matches, 44 goals, 19 assists. But even those couldn't fully capture his story, because in Wolverhampton, Jota wasn't just a goal scorer. He was a figure who could change the fate of a game, the one who gave fans hope when all seemed lost. At Passos, he learned hope. At Porto, he learned patience. At Wolves, resilience. Each stop taught him a new lesson, and he tied them all together in one line. When you are ready, don't talk too much. Just do your job. He did his job, and now the road stretched toward Anfield. In the autumn of 2020, the gates of Anfield opened quietly. The stands were empty because of the pandemic, but the red shirt was once again welcoming a new story. That day, Diogo Jota was officially a Liverpool player. The transfer fee was big, the expectations even bigger. But with the same calmness in his eyes, he chose to give only one answer on the pitch: goals. From the very first weeks, he proved he belonged to this city. A hat-trick in the Champions League, decisive goals in the Premier League. Jota brought a new breath of life to Liverpool's attack. Salah had the pace, Firmino the intelligence, Mane the power, yet Jota, with the angles he found in tight spaces and his ice-cold finishing, carved out a signature of his own. There was no showmanship in his game. Even in his goal celebrations, there was a humble sincerity. But that was exactly why every touch mattered more. In the years when Liverpool marched towards trophies, his composure from the penalty spot, the spaces he opened up, and the strikes he delivered at the right moments shaped the destiny of the team. Injuries sometimes forced him off the pitch, but every time he returned, the same story repeated. He came on, he scored, he gave the fans hope again. His name became the quiet symbol of Liverpool's never-give-up spirit. And finally, the Premier League title. As the red shirt lifted the trophy once again, Jota's effort and his mark were felt everywhere. By the end of his Liverpool career, the numbers read 182 matches and 65 goals. But for this city, Jota's meaning went far beyond numbers, because Anfield embraced him not just as a footballer, but as one of its own. The number 20 shirt was retired forever. Forever 20 was etched into Anfield's walls, and Diogo Jota was written into Liverpool's history, not only for the goals he scored, but for the spirit he gave to this city. When the noise of Anfield faded, what remained was the warmth of a home. In that home, there was the continuation of a high school love, Root. Two children who had grown side by side for years finally said yes in Porto on June 22, 2025. Three little hearts completed that home. And away from the spotlight, Jota shone the brightest as a husband, a father, a true family man. When he left the pitch, another game began. A controller in his hands, a familiar determination in his eyes. Jota was not only a child of football, but also of the gaming world. During the pandemic, he defeated Trent Alexander-Arnold with a golden goal in the E-Premier League Invitational, watched by millions. A year later, he became the world's #1 on FIFA 21. He turned that passion into a club, founding his own team, and later expanding through a partnership with Luna Galaxy. It was proof that for him, gaming was never just a hobby. It was discipline, competition, and joy woven into one sentence. Even his goal celebration carried traces of gaming. He would hold an imaginary controller, sit down, and press start as if beginning a match. That small gesture became an identity. Fans repeated it when they remembered him. Because in Jota's celebration, there was the innocence of childhood and the memory of a generation that grew up with games. One hot night in July, on the winding Zamora Highway, two brothers traveled side by side. At the wheel was Diogo, beside him Andre, with whom he had shared his childhood dreams. After a long season, there was peace in returning home. But fate turned that night into another story. When the car caught fire, the silence of the night was broken only by the scream of metal. Flames rose, dreams were left unfinished. Diogo was 28, Andre 25. Two brothers on the same road, leaving life behind at the same moment. By morning, the news had spread across the world. Silence fell on Liverpool's heart. Outside Anfield, fans left flowers, crying openly in their red shirts. In Gondomar, church doors opened. Prayers rose from the streets. A small town in Portugal seemed to carry the grief of the entire world. the story that ended that night on the highway continued to live in millions of hearts. Diogo Jota was no longer on the pitch, but in Anfield's songs, in Gondomar's streets, and in football's memory, his name would echo forever. A football pitch is not always just a field of play. Sometimes, a man running there leaves hope in the memory of millions. Diogo Jota was exactly that. His goals and trophies were, of course, written into history. But what remained above all was the face that touched people's hearts.
It's an unbelievable feeling. My first title, it's always special. So we went to enjoy the moment. We are champions.
Some people achieve immortality, not through the years they lived, but through what they leave behind. Diogo Jota wrote his name into football history, but his true mark was left in human hearts. And now we know, he was never just a footballer. He was the symbol of hard work, humility, and hope. Time will pass, new heroes will rise, new stories will be written. But Jota's name will always remain in the same place. In songs, in stands, in the streets, and most of all, in the deepest corners of the heart. Because some names are unforgettable, and Diogo Jota will never be forgotten.